The world watched in disbelief as the United States, led by President Donald Trump, carried out a bold military operation deep inside a sovereign nation, capturing the Venezuelan president and bringing him to U.S. soil. This wasn't a skirmish. It wasn't a secret raid. It was a full-scale strike involving hundreds of aircraft, elite forces, and months of geopolitical buildup that now shapes relations across the Western Hemisphere. Today, we're going to unpack the full story, from Trump's motivations to how the operation unfolded and why this moment might reshape global geopolitics forever. For years, tensions between the United States and Venezuela simmered beneath the surface of headlines. Accusations of corruption, alleged narco-trafficking links, and decades of economic decline overshadowed diplomacy. But in late 2025 and early 2026, that simmer turned into open conflict. President Trump escalated pressure, legal, economic, and ultimately military, on Venezuela and its longtime leader, President Nicolás Maduro. Over months, the U.S. deployed warships, issued naval blockades, sanctioned oil infrastructure, and raided chartered vessels linked to Caracas. Then, in a dramatic overnight operation, U.S. forces struck targets across Venezuela's capital, Caracas, and captured both the sitting president and his wife. The world reacted with shock, outrage, praise, and fear, because this was more than a hostage operation. It was an unprecedented exercise of American military power in South America. The buildup, from sanctions to military posture. For years, the Trump administration steadily tightened its grip on Venezuela, not with bombs at first, but with sanctions, indictments, and isolation. What started as economic punishment slowly evolved into something far more dangerous. Starting in 2025, Trump authorized expanded military and law enforcement operations targeting drug trafficking routes across the Caribbean. Central to this strategy was a dramatic move. The U.S. doubled the reward for information leading to Nicolás Maduro's arrest, pushing it as high as $50 million. By labeling Venezuela's leadership a criminal enterprise, Washington rewrote the rules of engagement. Maduro was no longer just a political rival. He was framed as a transnational threat. As sanctions intensified, U.S. naval forces quietly increased their presence near Venezuela's coastline. Warships, surveillance aircraft, and intelligence assets formed a tightening ring, the most significant U.S. military buildup in the region since the Cold War. The groundwork was being laid, legally, militarily, and psychologically, for something far bigger: political friction. Maduro versus the U.S. Nicolás Maduro had ruled Venezuela since 2013, inheriting power from Hugo Chavez. But his presidency became synonymous with economic collapse, hyperinflation, food shortages, mass migration, and international condemnation. The 2024 Venezuelan election proved to be a breaking point. International observers raised serious concerns about legitimacy, while opposition leaders accused the government of manipulation and repression. The U.S. openly branded Venezuela a narco state, alleging deep links between senior officials and international drug cartels, accusations Maduro fiercely denied. For Trump, Venezuela represented more than a hostile government. It symbolized declining U.S. influence in Latin America, growing Russian and Iranian presence, and control over the world's largest proven oil reserves, an estimated 303 billion barrels. This wasn't just political tension, it was a collision of ideology, power, and resources. The red line: escalation of force. By late 2025, the Trump administration crossed a threshold few thought possible. Covert operations expanded inside Venezuelan territory. Vessels linked to Caracas were intercepted. Infrastructure tied to sanctioned entities was quietly sabotaged. Then came January 3, 2026. In a single night, the United States launched what officials described as a large-scale military operation, targeting air defense systems, command centers, and strategic installations across Caracas. More than 150 aircraft were involved. Fighter jets, drones, helicopters, and transport planes coordinated across multiple theaters. It became one of the most complex U.S. military actions in decades, executed with stunning speed. Venezuela's defenses were overwhelmed before the world even realized what was happening: the capture inside the operation. At the heart of the operation was one goal: capture Nicolás Maduro alive. Elite U.S. Army Delta Force units were assigned the task. For weeks, they trained on a full-scale replica of Maduro's safe house, down to reinforced doors and steel-reinforced corridors. This wasn't improvisation, it was obsession-level planning. As U.S. forces breached the compound, Venezuelan security resisted. Firefights erupted, communications collapsed, But within hours, Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, were located, detained, and airlifted out of the country. Trump later confirmed the capture with images that stunned the world. Trump's rationale? Law enforcement, drug trafficking, and oil. Following the operation, Trump framed the action not as a war, but as law enforcement. He cited long-standing U.S. indictments accusing Maduro of narco-terrorism and corruption, arguing that no leader is above the law. Trump also made his economic intentions clear. Venezuela's oil industry, crippled by mismanagement and sanctions, would be reopened. U.S. companies, he suggested, would help rebuild and profit. The message was unmistakable. Remove the threat, control the resources, reshape the region. Global reaction, support, condemnation, and uncertainty. Reactions poured in within hours. Some governments quietly applauded the removal of an authoritarian leader. Others erupted in outrage. Legal experts pointed to Article 2.4 of the UN Charter, which prohibits the use of force against sovereign states. Brazil and Mexico condemned the operation. Venezuela's allies called it illegal. Protests erupted across Latin America, while debates exploded across global media. Into the power vacuum, Rodriguez, transition, and turmoil. Within hours, Venezuela's Supreme Tribunal named Vice President Delcy Rodriguez as interim president. She denounced the U.S. action and demanded Maduro's release. Trump responded with a shocking claim. The U.S. would temporarily oversee Venezuela's transition. This contradiction plunged Venezuela into chaos. Allies like Russia, Iran, and Cuba warned of consequences, and global tensions surged. The oil factor. Why Venezuela mattered. Venezuela's strategic importance hinges on its oil. With one of the largest proven oil reserves globally, the country represents both immense economic potential and geopolitical leverage. Following Maduro's capture, Trump pushed for U.S. energy investment to rebuild the sector, arguing this would help stabilize Venezuela's economy and provide revenue. Critics argue this reveals an economic motivation underpinning the military intervention, a move to control resources that American companies have historically coveted. Legal, ethical, and human rights questions. Beyond geopolitics, the operation sparked intense debate on legality and ethics. Many international law scholars labeled the military strike and capture a breach of sovereignty and a violation of global legal norms. Human rights observers raised concerns about casualties and the targeting of political leadership, contests that continue to shape global opinion and potential legal actions at forums like the UN. The aftermath. What happens next? In the weeks following the capture, the political power in Venezuela remains contested. Rodriguez's interim government seeks legitimacy. Maduro faces criminal charges in U.S. courts. U.S. companies are negotiating oil investment deals. Meanwhile, many Venezuelans inside and outside the country remain divided over the transition, reflecting broader debates on national sovereignty, foreign intervention, and the role of great powers in shaping national destinies. The capture of Venezuela's president by the United States under Donald Trump marks one of the most consequential and controversial foreign interventions of the 21st century. What began as months of pressure over narcotics, sanctions, and political disputes culminated in military action that defies decades of diplomatic norms and international legal frameworks. Whether viewed as a bold move against corruption and authoritarianism, or as an act of imperial overreach, this event will be studied for generations. It's not just about one leader's capture. It's about who has power in the world, how it's exercised, and whether the rules that have governed international relations for decades still hold. The repercussions of this moment are only just beginning.